Mundicide, the destruction of an entire planet. Throughout the hundreds of thousands of years of galactic history, many planets in the Star Wars galaxy met this fate, often taking untold billions of people and countless civilizations with them. Some were destroyed in the raging fires of supernovas, while others were obliterated by war. All, however, left a mark on the galaxy. In today's video, we'll be going over every single planet in Star Wars that was ever destroyed completely, whether that was Mother Nature taking its course or just the latest superweapon claiming its latest victims. Along the way, we'll also take a look at some honorable mentions, planets that remained intact but were still visited by untold devastation. To start us off, we'll be looking at the many worlds across history that were destroyed by natural disasters, forces of nature that reared out of control, sowing mass destruction and death. As anyone would know when we're discussing celestial bodies, the first natural threat to consider is each planet's star. As stars age, they can evolve to the next stage of their life cycle. In many cases, this leads to much destruction in their systems. Around 8000 BBY, the star known as Kolu of the Kolu, or Clactor system, expanded into a red giant, consuming the first of 7 planets in the system, Clactor 1. The same fate befell Korosi 1 through 5 of the Korosi system in the Outer Rim territories. And if their star didn't swell into a red giant, it could always go supernova. This was the end of many worlds, such as Warxa, also known as Yablon in the Dagon gas clouds of the Elrud sector, whose sun went supernova in 198 BBY. The same thing happened at an unknown point to Tilalix, the Taro homeworld in the Till sector, and an unidentified world where the rare red Kihoni crystals could be found. The Demophon system also met the same fate late during the Galactic Civil War, taking the planets Demophon, Xenobar, Jati, Inarch, and Dur. Tragically, most of the system's population perished on their homeworlds as the Galactic Empire had sabotaged the system's stellar observatory, giving its inhabitants too little time to evacuate. Meanwhile, Flankers, a remote world in the Fakir sector of the colonies, was destroyed shortly after the Battle of Yavin, and Rick, the homeworld of a Netai colony, was eradicated during the Great Sith Wars, leaving behind the Rick Nebula. Finally, Kashi, a world out in the Outer Rim territories, home to the Kashimir dynasty, was destroyed around 24,500 BBY when its star went supernova and destroyed the entire star system, though later historians linked this incident to the Kashimir talisman, which had survived the destruction. If their stars didn't explode, planets still weren't safe. Long ago, the star shatter of the Biboran cluster had expanded into a red giant, forming the Shaddar Nebula. Around 43 BBY, the star began cooling to a white dwarf, which led to the destruction of Figili and Shaddar Biboran and the extinction of the native species despite concentrated relief efforts. Other threats still loomed in the galaxy. Anoth, a planet out in wild space, alongside Nilrebma 9 and 6 of the Nilrebma sector, the unidentified homeworld of the Sibylari species, and Polismaster in the Western Reaches were destroyed by unknown cataclysms. The same fate met Kira 1, 2, and 3 in the Kira system of the expansion region sometime after 70 BBY, though only the second world was inhabited. Additionally, the homeworlds of the Vernal and Bancora species were rendered uninhabitable by a meteor strike, the former shortly before the Galactic Civil War, and the latter around 1800 BBY. Similarly, the Shikar homeworld was destroyed by a comet right before the Clone Wars, leaving behind an asteroid belt known as the Shikar Straits. Andron and Neral were both destroyed by volcanic activity, the first becoming unstable and breaking apart, while the second exploded. The planet of Brath Kela, later known as Malta Obex, was a world in the Miarukar sector of the Outer Rim territories. Homeworld to the Kela, It was orbited by 2 moons and orbited the primary star close to an asteroid belt. Around the time of its discovery in 145 BBY, its second moon was on an irregular orbit that put it on a collision course with the planet itself. Soon after, the planet's second moon crashed into Brathkela, destroying it completely. Finally, the planet Urkup in the Urkup system of the Outer Rim territories was home to the Dashade race, a species of powerful assassins. Their homeworld was destroyed in 3996 BBY during the Great Sith War when the Krondrift, a giant asteroid field, formed. As we'll soon discuss, however, most planets weren't destroyed by inescapable acts of force majeure. When most worlds met their end, it was at the hands of an enemy during some conflict. And with how many conflicts the galaxy saw, there were many destroyed planets. Although many early conflicts in the galaxy saw widespread destruction and decimation, few of these conflicts ended in total planetary destruction. The Rakatan Infinite Empire, for example, decimated many sectors of the planets Solonia and Waruna, but both worlds remained habitable after. Similarly, the Great Hyperspace War saw the orbital bombardment of many worlds, but none were completely annihilated. Korriban, for example, was heavily damaged and abandoned for centuries, but the planet remained habitable and intact. The first recorded world destroyed by its enemies would be Volta, a small world located in the arrowhead of the slice. Much like other systems, evidence indicated that Volta and its system had been created by the Celestials tens of thousands of years ago using the Cosmic Turbine, a gravity manipulation machine that allowed them to move planets into orbit. In 4250 BBY, a group of Dark Jedi sought to harness the Cosmic Turbine and use it against the Jedi Order. A misfire, however, led to the destruction of the machine, the Dark Jedi themselves, and the entire planetary system, leaving behind only a nebula. During the Great Sith War, under orders of Exar Kun, Sith superweapons were used to detonate several stars in the Kron cluster, causing a supernova chain. Many unidentified but inhabited worlds were obliterated in the aftermath. Critically, one of the worlds destroyed was the planet Ossus, the Jedi Order's homeworld. The planet itself wasn't destroyed, but almost everyone left on its surface was annihilated. The planetary surface and its structures were completely destroyed. In the aftermath, Ossus was cut off from the galaxy, with none able to reach it. During the Mandalorian Wars, although many planets like Sirocco and RS-3 suffered significant and lasting planetary damage, they also remained intact. During the ensuing Jedi Civil War, this remained mostly the same, with planets like Taris being razed to ashes, but remaining a whole planet. Taris was even restored later by the Republic. The exception to this, of course, is Malachor V, the site of the final battle of the Mandalorian Wars. During that battle, the planet had been severely damaged by the deployment of a Sith superweapon called the Mass Shadow Generator, which created a strong gravity well. The planet survived, however, until the end of the Jedi Civil War, where the superweapon was activated for a second and final time, finishing the job it had started and tearing the planet apart until only asteroids were left. Later on, in 3959 BBY, right after the conclusion of the Jedi Civil War, the planet Peragus II in the Peragus system of the Outer Rim met its end. Peragus II had been the only source of engine fuel in the Zapis sector and had been nearly destroyed many centuries ago when miners first attempted to extract fuel from the planet. In 3959, another accident occurred. An explosion was triggered beneath the planet's crust, igniting the rich fuel reserves and leading the planet to explode, leaving nothing but an asteroid belt in its place. Sometime between 3653 and 3641 BBY, during the Cold War between the Galactic Republic and the True Sith Empire, the Sith Lord Darth Mekis tested out a new superweapon in the Korosi sector of the Outer Rim, ripping apart Vesla III. Surprisingly, despite some of the harshest wars taking place during the time period of the old Sith Wars, most planetary destruction was limited to surface level. Some worlds were destroyed, but many more were left uninhabitable or devoid of life, with a special mention to Qatar and Nathema and Ziost, which had the life consumed from their worlds by Darth Nihilus and Darth Vitiate, respectively. When the new Sith Wars ushered in a new time of darkness and destruction for the galaxy, this pattern didn't change significantly. These next 1,000 years of war that ended with the 7th Battle of Ruusan were known for the rise of many Sith cults, each one crazier than the last, and the gradual decline of the Galactic Republic. With the slow death of law and order in the galaxy, new wartime tactics were employed by both sides. In 1800 BBY, the planet Uba 3 of the Uba system in the Mid-Rim was utterly destroyed by the Jedi Order, wiping out the Ubis colony and leaving a lifeless asteroid belt behind. It might seem surprising that the first planet destroyed by this conflict was attacked by the Jedi, but times were changing. The move, however, was extremely unpopular, and the Jedi's reputation took a serious hit. A similar fate befell the planet Oblis in the Kularan system, a planet known for its tech industry and large crystal exports. Around 1000 BBY, this planet was also destroyed, this time by a superweapon powered by the Dark Staff, reputed as one of the most dangerous Sith artifacts of the galaxy. Although not completely torn apart until mere asteroids were left, an honorable mention goes to Chiloa, a terrestrial world in the Grimani sector of the Outer Rim. During the new Sith Wars, it had fallen under the rule of the Chagras hegemony. After the death of Sith Lord Chagras, his territory was split between his two sons, Daemon and Odeon, who each ruled a fiefdom named after them. After his father's death, Chiloa fell under the rule of Daemon, who discovered large suppositories of baradium below the planet's surface and turned the once agri-world into a mining planet coveted by both the Jedi Order and his brother. After the Jedi failed to stop the baradium exports with Operation Influx in 1032 BBY, Daemon secretly deployed 10 kinetic corruptors planetside and disguised them as mobile munitions complexes. This baited his enemies to try and seize them, but resulted in the complete destruction of Chiloa's surface, rendering it uninhabitable. Following the 7th Battle of Ruusan and the Ruusan Reformation, the galaxy experienced nearly a millennium of peace. That peace was eventually broken by the Separatist Crisis and the Clone Wars, but surprisingly enough, no planet experienced total destruction during these conflicts. Several experienced total surface destruction or depopulation, like Kamino and Geonosis, but the planetary bodies themselves remained intact. Perhaps unsurprisingly, the main bulk of destroyed worlds came later, during the time of the Galactic Empire and the Galactic Civil War. Even before the alliance to restore the Republic had formed, the Galactic Empire took galactic domination quite seriously, ruling with an unyielding fist and crushing many in their way. To their credit, one of their first victims was Ord Dicol, a planet with an eponymous mid-rim system, and its destruction was an accident. In the ancient past, Ord Dicol had been hit by an ancient drill ship. Later, it had been colonized by the Galactic Republic, and during the time of the Galactic Empire, it housed an Imperial base on its surface. Early on, the Imperials discovered an unknown ancient mining vessel. When an Imperial team boarded it to investigate, they accidentally triggered its drill, which bored into the world and tore apart the entire planets. Other planets, on the other hand, were destroyed on purpose. Bronze, a planet in the Outer Rim, was the victim of such atrocities, and the planet was sundered. The same fate befell the unknown homeworld of Star Wars Chick and Het Nagaro, a world of the Andoma sector of the expansion region. Then there was the nameless world of the Drudan species in the Halthor sector of the New Territories. During the time of the Clone Wars, they were part of the Galactic Republic. When Order 66 was activated, the people of the system were sympathetic to the Jedi cause. The Dreadon created a safe haven on their homeworld for Jedi fleeing the Great Jedi Purge, which of course put their world at great risk. When the Galactic Empire learnt of their treason, they retaliated by eradicating the entire species and destroying the planet. By 1 BBY, there was nothing left on the world. Unsurprisingly, the Galactic Empire's penchant for creating and testing planet-ending superweapons led to the destruction of many more planets. The first one we'll look at is the Death Star 1 project, which has some of the most memorable planet-destroying moments in Star Wars history. Everyone knows about Alderaan, but many are surprised it isn't the first planet the Death Star destroyed. That unfortunate title fell to Desperate, a planet out in the Horus system of the Outer Rim that served as a prison and slave world for the Empire. To avoid detection by the Alliance to restore the Republic, the first Death Star was relocated to this remote sector where it was completed. As a first test of its destructive power, it was activated and used on Desperate. Another Death Star victim was Scarif, a tropical planet in the Abrian sector. This remote world was surprisingly important to the Empire as it housed many of their research projects, including the plans for the Death Star. When rebels attempted to steal the plans, Moff Tarkin fired on Scarif with the Death Star, hoping to kill the rebels before they left the planet. It's unclear to what extent the planet was damaged, but the damage was likely devastating. And finally, of course, there's Alderaan, one of the richest and most influential core worlds in Star Wars history. Alderaan was, of course, the homeworld of Princess Leia Organa, a member of the Rebel Alliance whom the Imperials had captured. They threatened her homeworld with destruction if she failed to reveal the location of the Rebel base, and when she failed to cooperate, the planet was no more. Another extremely powerful superweapon, one of the most powerful to have ever been built, was the Sun Crusher, a project helmed by Grand Moff Tarkin. It was funded by diverting some funds from the Death Star 1 project and developed by the secret Maw installation, a top-secret superweapon development lab in the Maw cluster. After Moff Tarkin's death, the project continued being developed in secret until 11 ABY in the middle of the Warlord's crisis. When New Republic forces were captured by Imperials in the area, 3 were able to escape with the Sun Crusher: Han Solo, Chewbacca, and Cup Durron, alongside one of the Imperial scientists that had developed the superweapon. Initially, the plan had been to destroy the Sun Crusher in the poisonous, high-pressure atmosphere of Yavin. Cup Durron, however, decided to use the superweapon to enact revenge on the Empire. First, he used the superweapon to destroy the Cauldron Nebula, which contained a major Imperial fleet alongside the innocent planet Eol Shah. Then, Durron traveled to the core and destroyed the Karida system, which contained the planets Karida with its 2 moons, Bidara, Andra, Orlin with its 1 moon, Kari with its 14 moons, Andin with its 20 moons, and 2 asteroid belts. Eventually, the Sun Crusher was destroyed, and with it went a second superweapon, the Death Star prototype, which had ironically survived much longer than the original. The prototype, however, had never destroyed a planet successfully. It had targeted Kessel, but its aim systems were so poor that it only destroyed a moon in the end. Yet another superweapon devised by the Galactic Empire was commissioned by the reborn Emperor Palpatine around 10 ABY. The Galaxy Gun, or Galaxy Weapon as it was called, was a 7.25 kilometer long cannon-shaped space station permanently located in Biss's atmosphere. Using hyperspace-capable particle disintegrator-topped warheads, the Galaxy Gun could fire these light-speed torpedoes and destroy worlds anywhere in the galaxy. 2 planets met their end this way: Krinmonin, a gas giant in the Calamari sector, and Hersey, the homeworld of the Quahog species. Another victim of Imperial weapons technology were the 3 unarmed planets of the Sixella system out in the Outer Rim territories. In 1 ABY, the 3rd planet was settled by the Imperial commander Rezi Soresh, A major altercation followed involving Soresh's forces, an Alliance fleet, and an Imperial fleet helmed by Darth Vader himself. The entire system was utterly destroyed when Soresh deployed resonance torpedoes that caused the system's primary star, the blue giant Sixella, to go supernova and destroy all 3 planets in the system. Although not a superweapon, Operation Cinder also saw many worlds severely damaged or destroyed. After his death in 4 ABY, Darth Sidious had left posthumous instructions to his subordinates to enact revenge on the galaxy, essentially punishing them via orbital bombardment for failing to prevent his death. These worlds were perceived as treasonous regardless if they were loyal Imperial planets or in open rebellion. Many planets were targeted, including worlds decimated or depopulated by the bombardment, such as Necronis, Vardos, Abanedo, and Comenor. But only Kortatkar was completely destroyed. After the Battle of Endor, a breakaway Imperial faction had occupied the world and established a base before it was destroyed by orbital bombardment. Finally, although not strictly intentional, one more planet was destroyed as a result of Imperial weapon experimentation. We're talking about Taspan II, a planet in the Taspan system of the Inner Rim. The Galactic Empire had established a weapons research facility on the planet that focused on testing gravity well projectors, the type of weapon that had torn apart Malachor V millennia ago. Taspan II met an unfortunate end when, in 1 ABY, there was an accident with the gravity well projectors that resulted in a cataclysmic event known as the Big Crush. Much like Malachor, the planet was torn apart and its debris hadn't settled even 4 years later, instead drifting across the battlefield of the Battle of Mindor. Some sources mention that the system was destroyed after the battle, which implies that Mindor was also destroyed, but that information is contradicted by Mindor-specific sources that state the planet was simply devastated and devoid of life. Now, many of these Mundicides happened in the context of the Galactic Empire's totalitarian galactic occupation, but many others were part of the carnage caused by the Galactic Civil War. As we've mentioned in previous videos, when facing off against an empire with such militant oppression and stark disregard for civilian life, the Alliance to restore the Republic couldn't always remain on their high horse and seek peaceful or only slightly destructive means to ending the Empire's reign. There were times during the Galactic Civil War that the Alliance resorted to means just as awful as those of the Empire, and sometimes that meant planets were torn apart in the wake of a battle. We've already talked about the Galaxy Gun and how the Empire used it to target and decimate many worlds. However, the superweapon's final victim was the planet whose atmosphere it was situated in, Biss. And ironically, it was an accident caused by the New Republic. Biss was a world in the deep core very near the galactic center that had somehow evaded discovery until around 45 BBY by modern civilization. In the galaxy's early history, it had been part of the Rakatan Infinite Empire, who left a foreboding temple and many other ruins on the planet's surface. During the time of the Galactic Empire, it was a loyalist planet fitted with many fixtures of war, such as dry docks for world devastators and super star destroyers, a protective blockade of warships, Inquisitor brainwashing facilities, and even thousands of slaves. Biss was a key world in Emperor Palpatine's schemes, as it was also the world he chose as his throne world after he was reborn in the body of a clone. But slaves weren't the only people relocated to Biss. Many galactic citizens were invited to the planet and kept happy with distractions such as arcades and amusement parks, which served to distract them from their true purpose. Sidious had gathered them there to slowly drain their life force. When Palpatine somehow returned, Biss was the new capital world of his galactic empire, which he sought to expand to the Empire's previous strength. Naturally, the New Republic couldn't let that go, resulting in several battles that took place on the world. During the last attack, the astromech droid R2-D2 took control of Eclipse 2, the Emperor's new flagship, and set it on a collision course with the Galaxy Gun, which was still in the planet's atmosphere. This, of course, destroyed the Eclipse too, but it also caused the Galaxy Gun to fire, this time targeting Biss. The planet didn't survive. Another world destroyed as the result of New Republic actions was Samati V, a planet in the Samati system in the colonies. We don't know much about the circumstances, but Han Solo destroyed the planet in 2 ABY. All in all, the New Republic committed much less Mundicide than the Galactic Empire and any of its successors, which is to be expected. Sadly, the destruction didn't end with the destruction of Biss. When the First Order rose and began taking over the galaxy, many more worlds met their end. The First Order were an authoritarian military junta that operated out of the unknown regions. Their goal was to eradicate disorder from the galaxy, and they strove to do so by taking it over and imposing their version of order. It was ruled by a supreme commander who operated out of a mobile headquarters, and to put it frankly, they got up to no good 100% of the time. After the Battle of Jakku in 5 ABY between the New Republic and the Galactic Empire, the First Order relocated to the ice world of Ilum in the unknown regions and picked up where the Empire had left off. They continued transforming the Equatorial Trench, eventually building Starkiller Base. The base was equipped with a planet destroyer level superweapon capable of destroying entire systems on the other side of the galaxy. In the eyes of the First Order, this was an upgrade on the Death Star and all the other Imperial superweapons we've already talked about. When the First Order were finally ready, they tested out the superweapon in 34 ABY on a remote world. Its test target was Narrators, a rocky planet in the Dussel system of the unknown regions. When the superweapon was deployed, the entire system was destroyed, including Narrators, its moon, and all other celestial bodies. The New Republic would later visit the site of the destruction as part of their investigation into the First Order. Following the successful trial of their superweapon, the First Order then deployed the superweapon on a far more important target, targeting the Hosnian system in the core. The entire system was destroyed, including all of its planets: Cortilius, Ratio, Hosnian Prime, and Hosnian Carota. Naturally, the New Republic launched a retaliatory strike on Starkiller Base on Ilum. During the attack, Resistance pilot Poe Dameron targeted the thermal oscillator, a key component that prevented the superweapon from stabilizing. When the First Order prepared to fire the superweapon, this time targeting the Resistance's base on the planet Dakar, it destabilized, destroying Ilum itself. The stellar energy that was released transformed the planet into a star, taking the base and everything else with it. Another ice planet destroyed by the First Order was Tarnuna in the Mid-Rim, home to an eponymous species. Up until this point, Tarnuna had remained pointedly neutral in all galactic conflicts. However, shortly after the Battle of Crate in 34 ABY, the Tarnuna allowed the Resistance to stay on their world, which drew the ire of the First Order. Shortly thereafter, the First Order utterly destroyed the world. However, it is unclear within the sources if they destroyed only the planet's surface and all civilization, or the planet itself. Finally, to round off the trio of ice planets that the First Order destroyed, we have Kijimi, a frozen world in the Brick sector of the Mid-Rim. Up until then, Kijimi had been a haven for criminals and smugglers. During the time of the First Order, the planet was under total military occupation. A Force-sensitive man and student to Luke Skywalker known as Karnok Sin traveled to the world alongside his droid RZ-7 in search of lost Jedi artifacts. While he was there, he was accosted and interrogated by the First Order, who thought they could use him to find Skywalker. Later on, in 35 ABY, the planet was selected as a target. From the shadows of Exegol, Darth Sidious and his Sith Eternal cult had wanted to send a message that the Resistance had lost. Thus, the First Order executed Protocol 13, recalling all Imperial personnel from Kijimi before the Zeiston-class Star Destroyer Derefun that belonged to the Sith Eternal Fleet utterly destroyed the planet. But let's back up a decade or so and go over the last major threat the galaxy experienced, the invasion of the Yuuzhan Vong. Occurring approximately around 25 ABY, this was one of the darkest times for the galaxy when entire systems were at risk and many worlds met their end. For those of you unfamiliar with them, the Yuuzhan Vong were a species hailing from a distant galaxy that considered themselves to be the chosen race. Some of the things that made them unique were that they couldn't be sensed by the Force, they considered mechanical technology to be an abomination, relying instead on purely organic constructs, and they were very, very into sadomasochism. When the Yuuzhan Vong eventually invaded the galaxy, they brought their alien technology with them and were single-handedly responsible for the death of over 300 trillion beings. As you can imagine, many of those deaths were linked to Mundicide. However, before we look at the carnage they wrought within the main galaxy, there are two worlds worth looking at in the Yuuzhan Vong's own satellite galaxy. The first world is Yuuzhan Tar, the ancient homeworld of the Yuuzhan Vong. The planet was very far from the main Star Wars galaxy, and although not much is known about it, we know it had a large asteroid belt forming a ring around its equator. Unfortunately for the Vong, their homeworld was utterly destroyed during the Kremlevian War, an ancient civil war between different factions of the Vong. Following their world's destruction, the Vong likely thought of galactic colonization. The second world that was destroyed in their galaxy was Geetsly. During that same conflict, it was either part of the fiefdom or the throne world of one of the two warring Yuuzhan Vong factions, and much like Yuuzhan Tar, it was destroyed during the conflict. With so many worlds destroyed back home, perhaps it wasn't surprising that the Yuuzhan Vong planned, prepared, and executed an invasion of the main galaxy. Their goals were to Vong form the worlds they had settled, transforming each planet into an environment that suited their needs. The first foothold of the Vong was a planet known as Helska IV, where the Vong prepared their first invasion wave. After the New Republic discovered their location, they concocted a plan to end the Vong invasion and destroy their forces. Using a shield ship, the New Republic hoped to reflect energy back at the planet. The plan was successful, but as a result, Helska IV's liquid core froze, then shattered, killing all Vong planet-side, but also tearing apart the world. Despite losing Helska IV, the Vong weren't deterred. When they launched their full invasion, they settled and Vong formed many worlds and destroyed others. Kalaba, for example, was a planet in the Mid-Rim that was destroyed when the Vong sent Hosk Station crashing into it. Another world that met its end was Cernpidal, a planet within the Julevian system of the New Territories. In the past, it had seen action during the Jedi Civil War and the Great Galactic War when it was under control of the Sith Empire. Due to how heavily populated it was, the Vong targeted it in 25 ABY to send a message to their enemies. To attack the world, they planted a Dovin Basal, a Vong weapon that could create micro-black holes just outside Cernpidal City on the planet. When the Dovin Basal was activated, it caused one of Cernpidal's moons to crash down into the planet, nearly splitting the world in two and destroying its atmosphere. The Vong later used their organic tools to try and turn the planetary fragments into a ship world, but anything that was left of the planet was destroyed by Rogue Squadron. Another world that fell victim to the Vong was Tandon III, a newer planet out in the Outer Rim. When the Vong reached the planet, they settled it and began Vong forming it as they had done on other worlds. For 20 years, they transformed the planet into an environment so extreme, only they and some species of fauna from their galaxy could survive there. However, their meddling also increased volcanic and tectonic activity to such an extent that Tandon III was at risk of being torn apart. Strong winds produced ice clouds and powerful storms in an atmosphere filled with poisonous gases. The planet was able to survive until 43 ABY, when the tectonic and volcanic activity intensified, leading to extremely powerful ground quakes. The strongest one yet was enough to trigger a planetary explosion, with chunks of the world hurling through the system. During the Vong's invasion, many other worlds were rendered uninhabitable, such as Ithor, Barab I, and New Plimto. After the Vong were defeated, they remained as memorial worlds. With the defeat of the Vong, however, we've covered the major players in galactic history that contributed to the destruction of planets. To wrap up our list today, we'll look at the stranger and more unique ways planets met their end. We'll start with an unnamed planet in the Paradise system of the Outer Rim, home to the Yuuzhan species. Later historians speculated that the planet must have once been rich in easily obtainable nutrients and lacked serious predators. This, however, was mere speculation. When the native species evolved enough to develop spaceflight, they became nomads in their system, living aboard starships. As they left their homeworld behind, they themselves intentionally blew it up alongside an unidentified number of other planets in the system, creating an enormous junkyard. Another species that went to the effort of destroying their own homeworld were the Charon, whom we've covered in a previous video. Their homeworld was the first to fall victim to the Charon death cult before they turned their sights on the rest of the galaxy. Next, there was Ova, a planet in the Outer Rim that was destroyed in 30 BBY. Although it was never confirmed in universe, people guess it was sucked into infinity by an infinity wave. These were waves harnessed by the ancient Qua species to create their infinity gates. These waves were powerful enough to suck entire planets into infinity, destroying all matter. If that weren't enough, a side effect was also that hyperspace travel to the affected sector also became impossible, perhaps explaining why no one could confirm what had happened to the planet. Fast forwarding to 18 ABY, a new crisis shook the galaxy. This was the Corellian Crisis, also known as the Corellian Insurrection, the Centerpoint Station Crisis, or the Starbuster Plot. During this crisis, the Sicorian Triad, the governing force of Sicoria, an agri-world in the Corellian sector, as well as some other extremist groups, tried to take over the entire Corellian sector. Their goal was to secede from the New Republic, then essentially take over the galaxy. Using a superweapon concealed in Centerpoint Station, they instigated a series of insurrections throughout the 5 brothers of the Corellian system. The superweapon was unfortunately deployed by the Human League, one of the extremist groups working with the Sicorian Triad. The weapon was aimed at the Thunta Zilbra system out in the Outer Rim. The ray penetrated the system's star, causing it to detonate and destroy the entire system and its 3 worlds, Hordorn Kull, Flandar, and Thunta Zilbra, a sparsely populated world known for its life-saving therapeutic fungi. And last but not least, we'll talk about Anaxis, perhaps one of the most well-known worlds to those interested in the Clone Wars. Anaxis was situated along the Polemian trade route and had been a member of the Galactic Republic since its early days. For millennia, it guarded against incursions against the core along the Polemian, using local security forces alongside the Republic naval base. During the Clone Wars, it remained loyal to the Republic and was eventually attacked by Admiral Trench during the Outer Rim sieges. Anaxis is also the world where the clone trooper Echo was rescued. Unfortunately for Anaxis, after the Clone Wars, it was torn apart in a cataclysmic event. Although no source can confirm what happened, it's believed that a catastrophic nuclear reactor meltdown planet-side triggered the detonation of a massive stockpile of exceptionally flammable hypermatter in the planet's shipyards. The explosion was so massive that it tore Anaxis apart, leaving nothing but an asteroid belt where the Loyalist world had once been. And with that, we've talked about every single planet that was ever met with complete destruction in the Star Wars universe. Although the list might seem endless, it's important to remember that galactic history spans hundreds of thousands of years. In that time, fewer than 100 worlds were ever reduced to floating space debris, a number vastly eclipsed by those planets rendered uninhabitable, drained of life, glassed, or otherwise had their surface decimated. That's exactly what made planet-destroying superweapons such a visceral threat to galactic safety. When a superweapon like the Death Star or the Galaxy Gun were created, they were capable of turning the course of any war and were thus made a priority target. Even beyond that though, total planetary destruction was rarely to the benefit of anyone, including the faction doling out said destruction. Even lifeless husks still contained resources that could be extracted by droids or served as temporary stations. All in all, in the grand scheme of things, it could have been a lot worse. Thanks to the heroic work of people like Rogue Squadron, many worlds doomed to die were spared and went on to see another sunrise. But what of the planets that remained whole only in name? Worlds like Nathema or Taurus that were wiped of all life. We've mentioned a few key planets, but the list is far, far longer. If you want to see them all detailed in an upcoming video, make sure you let us know in the comments section below. And as always guys, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.